of groceries, which are a main thing, but also mortgage rates, right? Being able to buy a house, being able, we talked about housing in the vice presidential debate, buy a car. I mean, the ability to borrow money, and your credit card bills going up as well, borrowing money when you buy things. And so for everybody, they felt the pinch at home big time.
And the Harris campaign certainly tried to catch him on this issue, right? If you look at polling in the last few days, she had essentially drawn even with him. The problem is she didn't get ahead of him. There wasn't enough time for her to unveil these plans, and they'll have them marinate. And already tonight, you know they're in trouble when they start blaming each other, and it's coming in already. One congressman saying there'll be plenty of time to do this blame, but if there's one thing we're not doing right, the Democratic Party is a working-class voter problem. We must improve our numbers here to win. They understand as this continues to happen, and as the inevitable may happen in Wisconsin, as we're seeing already, that if they can't win over those voters, and they fail to capture them on the economy, then they have some real restructuring to do going forward, especially if this is going to cut across age groups, education, and ethnicity.
He did very well, Donald Trump, with educated white men and white women, but it didn't seem to matter how...
Non-college educated.
Non-college educated, yes. But it didn't seem to matter how often you heard the economy's doing well, the job report is doing well. None of that seemed to matter. People would still say, I'm still paying too much for milk, I'm still paying too much for bread. Well, they can't feel it at home. It doesn't matter what you say.
You look at this, since Biden took office, rents in the battleground states are up 20%. That's not because Joe Biden was elected. The cost of your rent is affected by a number of different factors, but people blame the boss. I mean, the grocery inflation, 22%. We were on the back end of a pandemic that completely upended
and what the
supply chains and global economy.
What the political scientists will tell you is that also voters don't give you credit for the good things that are happening. The unemployment rate was lower in 6 of the 7 battleground states under Joe Biden than under Donald Trump, leaving aside COVID. Pre-COVID, Trump unemployment was higher in every battleground state but Nevada, but voters they don't give you credit for things that happen. They are concerned about the plenty of things that they legitimately feel about their own economic position.
Much to great frustration inside the Biden White House. Almost from day one, they would complain to you behind the scenes that they felt like they were never getting credit for the advancements in the economy that were happening even underneath him. They would scream from the rooftops, and he would do press conferences, or he would go to battleground states and talk about housing, and they felt like he never got the credit for it. There was nothing they could do to vocally challenge the microphone that Trump had on that point.
Or they just messaged it.
Part of why they wanted to
Let's
do it.
listen now to the Harris campaign co-chair, Cedric Richmond. He's about to address the crowd at Howard University.
Good evening, HU. I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the promise of America. We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
And there you have the co-chair of the Harris campaign saying it's okay, everybody can go home. We're not going to have a decision tonight, and the vice president is not coming out to address, but we'll speak to the crowd tomorrow.
That is not going to land in a comforting way with Harris supporters, I think. And Nancy said it. We've all been talking about it, how extremely reminiscent this feels to 2016. And the campaign manager, John Podesta, coming out to those microphones. I was in that room addressing the crowd saying, you will hear from her, but you're not going to hear from her tonight. And then we ended up hearing from her the next day.
And also saying, too, Cecilia, we still have hope. There's still a path. It's a big sense of, a big case of deja vu.
He didn't say we still have a path.
No.
He said their votes still being counted.
Yeah, he said the votes are still being.
Have a path.
But he said the votes are still being counted, and that leads you to believe that there is that there still is hope. He didn't say, look, there's no chance. He said the votes are still being counted. So, there's a big case of deja vu, I think, for many people tonight.
What a shot this is, though, to see these supporters at her alma mater at Howard University and many D.C. residents there in that neighborhood walking off of that campus right now, wondering when they will know the results of this election.
I know that as we watch the crowd disperse and wait for word from the Harris campaign about what is next, we enter this late morning period where votes are just still being counted. In Pennsylvania, it could take a couple of days. Michigan, it could take a day. I want to bring in David Becker on that, because, David, you spent so much time speaking with state election officials about the vote count. What can you tell us about timing?
So right now, I think Philadelphia in particular and some the Pennsylvania counties are still looking to probably finish up a lot of those mail ballots. They had to start processing today, probably looking into tomorrow or Thursday. But depending upon the margin, we might get to the point where there's enough for us to call it. Michigan, I think they're mainly focusing on Wayne County right now in the city of Detroit. I think there's some that are still to be reported. I have an update on Arizona in particular. I just talked to a Maricopa County election official, and there's about 650,000 ballots that they have not reported out yet. They haven't tabulated yet, plus the mail ballots that were delivered today, and they're not sure of that number yet. So there's a significant number of Arizona ballots out, and I think that's going to go well into tomorrow, perhaps even Thursday, until we get those. And that's always what happens in Arizona, because they allow so many, and there's a culture of delivering those mail ballots on the day of the election, which doesn't allow them to pre-process. They have to do that right away and get it in the next couple of days.
Mm-hmm. So that means we're looking at maybe Thursday if it comes down to Arizona?
I'd say about Thursday. I mean, if the path for Harris right now, as slim as it might be, is Pennsylvania, Michigan, and then possibly Arizona or the long shot of Wisconsin, Arizona's going to take probably a day or two. Pennsylvania might take about that long, too. And remember, that's still significantly earlier, especially given the margins than what we saw in 2020.
I remember. It took all the way till Saturday.
Right.
Much more to discuss. You're watching CBS News America Decides, Election 2024.